Hi, this is Arbor Jacki, and you're listening to Habs Lunch, microwaves and power plays on TSN 690.
Well, Nico Mikkola, he takes the puck back and lets the clock run off, and right with about a half a second to go, he takes a clapper, head height, all the way down the ice. David Savard has to dive down. You rarely ever see something like that, and everybody gets fired up and goes right after him.
There's no chance that this slides. There's just absolutely zero chance, and Mikkola knows it, and he knows he's going to have to answer the bell. And a guy like AJ Greer's going to knows that he's going to have to probably stick up for his teammate. So, you're not going in, thinking number 77 Florida is the main focus of the game. But nonetheless, there are ways that this gets settled, and you can still focus on the 2 points.
That is the coach, John Goins, part of the broadcast. And then earlier today on Campbell versus Gallo, it's Habs Lunch. Campbell versus Gallo. I'm Sean Campbell. He's Mitch Gallo. Should the Habs seek revenge on Niko Mikkola tonight as the Habs face the Panthers? Mitch, this is a big question because it's been talked about since Sunday, but the Canadiens, they got to worry about the 2 points. But you just heard the coach. He said they're not going to let this slide.
Campbell, nothing is more important tonight than getting 2 points, and that includes seeking out revenge for an event that happened in the previous game when nobody even got hurt. So, I tend to not want to be emotional when making decisions. Hockey teams, though, can be emotional, and sometimes, Campbell, it can help actually galvanize the group. Like, there's a way to do it, I think, where your sole focus is not Mikkola, but you can also get angry as a team and bring maybe a higher work ethic to the game tonight because of what happened in the previous game. I think, some teams really benefit or play better when they're playing with extra incentive or emotion. And sometimes over the course of a very long season, you need to find a way to manufacture that hatred for another team or that extra emotion that's going to take to win a game. So, I think there's ways to do it where you can do both, like the coach that John Goins spoke about, but it would not be my mandate. It would not be my focus. It would not be my number one goal. It is such a side plot to me. To me, the main focus is 2 points, and nothing is more important than that.
Like, do they need to go? Let's just say they decide to go down the revenge path. Revenge, the players have spoken amongst themselves. We're not going to let this slide. Does it have to be Jacki beating up Mikkola? Like he mentioned, AJ Greer versus Michael Pezzetta, and then it's settled? Like, or you just have a good forecheck and you give him an extra shot. Maybe you take 2 minutes. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I'm just asking, like, what path would they take if they go down the path that you don't want them to take?
Well, it's just it comes down to discipline, because you can't have a situation where you are completely just focused on seeking out retribution for what happened in the previous game. It leads to a penalty that isn't offsetting. You have the Florida Panthers get a power play, score on that power play, and you lose the game by 1 goal. So you've just risked 2 points in the standings to get retribution for what happened in the previous game. That's what you can't see. Also, you can't lose your focus. To me, it's all about focus. And if the focus is on Mikkola, the focus is in the wrong place. The focus has to be beating the Florida Panthers. That's the focus. And we've seen teams get distracted. But, Campbell, there's also teams that come together as a group, and they can play better when they seek retribution or they develop that hate and anger, and they're united as a group to try to seek that retribution. So I think, in a roundabout way, there's a fine line, but you can't do something stupid, because that's where you can potentially cost yourself.
I think a lot of people are expecting that, though, the gloves to drop the fight, because it's not Nashville. It's not, Buffalo. It's the Florida Panthers, and there's something behind everything that they do. And the Canadiens and Panthers are creating a pretty good rivalry this year, mainly because the Canadiens have been beating up the Panthers on the ice. And like you said, the points are very important, but we know the style of play that the Panthers play. I think there's something to be said if the Canadiens want to go down that route. They might be falling into what the Panthers want. I bet the Panthers, who are like, let's go, let's bring it. You want to drop the gloves tonight? We're going to do it right away. And they'd have no problem doing it.
Well, that's their style more so than any other team, especially in the Eastern Conference.
So maybe it's not a good idea then.
They play that way. But Campbell, at some point, it's also kind of a bit of a learning experience for the Canadiens going through something like this, because I'll go back to what I was talking about with emotions and trying to manage those emotions. You talk about the kids that you coach, right? And you say at this point for them, or before your team got knocked off, the biggest thing was managing their emotions throughout the course of a game.
Thanks for reminding me.
Rather than actually teaching them something when, you've had the team playing for you for the entire season. They're young kids. So it's about managing the emotions of a game. The Canadiens are a young team. And to me, it's about managing their emotions at this point, because when you look at if they get into the playoffs in a few weeks from now, those playoff games, you look at a 7-game playoff series, the swings in emotion are so intense. And there's a lot of players here on this team that haven't experienced that. So maybe this is a little bit of a preview, especially with the Florida Panthers and Montreal Canadiens playing in back-to-back games. By the way,
yeah,
I wish the schedule makers would do this a little more often.
The little back-to-backs?
We see it maybe 3 times a year where you play the same team in 2 straight games.
Yeah, no, this is the perfect time for this too, and maybe but there's a whole thing with the whole Mikkola, like they lose the game, but he knows that they're playing Montreal the next game. Like I don't know how much thought got behind it.
I don't think he was thinking about that.
But can I get back to, you said the Canadiens are young and they have to learn to manage their emotions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And because of potential playoffs coming up for a lot of these young players. And then some of these young players have gone through the playoffs and had success. And I'm thinking of Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, who looked pretty good in the playoffs as very young players just 4 years ago. Can I use, sometimes I get caught up in terminology. And I'm not saying that they need to manage their emotions, and that's not a proper term. But this game could be a good test of their emotions. Like if the Panthers test those emotions and they answer properly with that right intensity, with the proper emotional response, and it might equal dropping the gloves and it might not. This is a good test to see how the Canadiens manage this. Do they let it get out of hand in their own head and then Florida's just sitting on the bench going, exactly, you fell into our trap? Or are the Canadiens able to go toe-to-toe emotionally in a big physical game against the Panthers? This could be more of a test than the management itself. They might just see what comes to them and then react necessarily.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And Campbell, just as far as some of the players that you're talking about before that have experience in the playoffs, it's different now, though. Right? Because like you mentioned, Caulfield and Suzuki.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 players were, yes, part of the run in the playoffs to the final, but they were not the focal points. They were not the leaders of the team. They're not the top guns, right? So they had people to lean on. Now there's no safety net behind those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So while they have the experience of managing those emotions of playing in a playoff, they haven't been leaned on as the top guys. And then we're going to see a lot of players experiencing this type of thing for the first time ever. Whether it's a Caden Gooley, a Lane Hudson, a Uri Slavkovsky. They have guys that haven't been put in these types of spots. So you're right. Like what it is it becomes a complete unknown, because you're saying, what if they respond correctly to it? They might.
Yeah.
They might respond, and we might be talking here tomorrow on Campbell versus Gallo saying, what a great response to what happened in the previous game with Nico Mikkola, and the Canadiens found a way to also get 2 points in the standings. But man, it's just, I don't have a great feel about tonight's game, especially if they start running around looking for retribution on Mikkola. I feel as though they've already, like if you told me at the beginning of the season in 4 matchups with the Florida Panthers, the Canadiens would pick up 6 of 8 points, which is what would have happened what will happen if they lose tonight. I would say that was a great 4-game set with the Florida Panthers coming off their Stanley Cup championship last year. It's just Campbell beating this team 4 times, all in regulation, is going to be a very daunting task. So So that's why I just think that if you're thinking about anything other than winning tonight, you're probably setting yourself up for failure.